Alright, hello, and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and I want to start by asking, did Bitcoin die today? No. No, it did not. Let's take a look at Bitcoin's uptime tracker. 99 point this percent of the time. We are now 3,387 days consecutive with Bitcoin operating as it was designed to, with Bitcoin operating as intended. I don't think the TradeFi traditional finance community realizes the overwhelming majority of Bitcoin holders, especially those who have been through 2 cycles, are not messing around when they say that they have no intention to ever sell. This was made clear in 2018. I can remember, if we go back to this C19 crash, okay, March of 2020, an all-time high up here at 20,000, and we made this low of the C19 plunge down here at 3,000. 86% of the supply was held. The vast majority of people that bought up here, okay, and bought all the way along here, the vast majority of these people didn't sell. They did not sell. They were willing to hold this thing all the way down to zero and then all the way back up again. It's difficult for the traditional finance community to realize. It's difficult for them to understand, okay, but Bitcoin is not any old asset. And there's a reason that Bitcoin commands this hold forever thing, because this is a ticket to freedom. This is the one shot at freedom that the planet has. Those that take freedom seriously understand. Bitcoin is a 2030 ticket out of the Great Reset. I've said this before, I'll say it again. There is no risk to holding Bitcoin. People, when they think in terms of fiat currency, they think, oh, but I could buy Bitcoin and it could go down and I would lose my fiat currency. And whilst that's technically true, really think about the risk. The risk is not owning Bitcoin. If you don't own any Bitcoin, then you might have fiat in the bank. But what happens when we go into a blackout? What happens when the financial system is frozen? What happens when it implodes? What happens when we undergo this great reset? You're going to lose all your money, and you're going to be forced to accept central bank digital currencies that come with no privacy, no freedom. You will be a digital slave. Okay, so if you buy Bitcoin and you lose all your money, Bitcoin goes to zero and it fails, then you're going to end up no worse off than the rest of the planet anyway. The whole planet is going to be digital slaves to CBDCs. There is no real risk in Bitcoin. Yes, you risk losing fiat. You risk the value of Bitcoin priced in fiat decreasing over the short term. But over the long term, if you don't have Bitcoin, if Bitcoin doesn't succeed, we are all completely screwed. If you buy Bitcoin and it doesn't fail, which, let's be honest, it looks like it's going to be here, doesn't it? If you buy Bitcoin and it doesn't fail, well, then it might just be our ticket to freedom. With Bitcoin, we have at least a chance at freedom here, at least a chance out of this great reset. Whilst we're on the subject of TradeFi, here are some popular names. Okay, it's not just Bitcoin that is experiencing these enormous drawdowns. Okay, look at Netflix. Netflix down 70%. Okay, PayPal down over 60%. So don't think just because you're in Bitcoin, oh, I chose the wrong asset. Oh, it's too volatile. Oh, no. If you're sticking around through this, you know, this is Bitcoin and crypto investors are animals. They sit through volatility that no one else is willing to tolerate. And let's face it, that other people cannot tolerate. Okay, if this is hurting you now, believe me, it will be killing other people. This is no joke, okay? This, for the stocks, is terrible, especially since that off the lows from the bear market for Bitcoin, we were up at the highs, something like, 20x? Okay, and you can guarantee these stocks were not. No way. They weren't even close to that. They would have been the best performance, 200-300%. Okay, this is a different breed, and if you're going to get the massive gains, you're going to need to first accept the volatility. This is all, remember, a matter of perspective, as Plan B says. When you look at this chart in a linear scale, it's easy to say the bubble's popped, it's over, it's done, it's dead. But just changing this to a log chart, this is the same data, remember. Okay, this doesn't look so bad, right? This doesn't look so bad. And I've got if I reset this chart here, I've got a weekly Bitcoin chart. It's easy to look at this chart just to show you this same concept. It's easy to look at this chart and say, oh, it's over. Okay, but if I just click log and reset this chart and zoom out, it really doesn't look that bad, huh? We've got some fractal genius from the blockchain backer here. It's saying that Bitcoin has undergone this giant capitulative move. Okay, it's done this before. And similarly, Ethereum of late has just put in one of these same capitulative moves. Zooming in on the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 endings. Okay, Bitcoin has just completed this, hasn't it? Let's look at this. This is the previous one. And let's look at Ethereum. Here's Ethereum. This is the exact same thing, right? The most shocking thing right now, says Blockchain Backer, would be a full V-bottom recovery with no opportunity to re-enter. I want to pause here and just ask you the question, do you know anyone, I mean you probably know a couple of people, myself included, but for the most part, everyone you speak to thinks Bitcoin is dead. Oh, it lost its prior all-time high, it's going to zero, it's over, right? Sentiment is completely destroyed, and for good reason. We have put in some horrible, horrible downwards action. But the one thing no one's expecting now is an absolutely face-melting rally off of the lows. No one's really expecting this, okay? Like we did before. So does that mean that this is back on the cards? Does that mean that this is back on the table? We've had this capitulative move, just like we did down here, way back at 2000 odd. Is that what we're about to see? Was this an enormous flush out? Was this just simply big players liquidating other big players, such as with the Celsius implosion, the lunar implosion, all of this sort of thing? 3 Arrows Capital blowing up. Are they all just out of the market now? And can we now resume with Bitcoin doing Bitcoin things? He says it definitely feels weird to say that $883 could have been it for Ethereum, since everyone was saying just a few dollars lower as well. All the liquidations happened for the hedge funds. But the count lines up perfectly. So we have to be open to more downside. But one thing no one's expecting right now is massive upside. At the same time, we've got this from Jordan. You can see here, every 1 year, every 365 days, Bitcoin's returns are surprisingly consistent at 107.16%. So we are well below this mean. Well below it, like even more severely than we were in March, right, in the C19 plunge. We are way below this. So a mean reversion within the next year seems more than likely, okay? Like statistics are statistics at the end of the day. At the same time, with all of this confluence, here we are, putting in more generational bottom signals. Here we are again, showing that this plunge is starting to look an awful lot like the C19 plunge. Did we just complete this? Are we about to see the end of this week with a candle that maybe wicks below, maybe holds above this line, maybe it closes below, it doesn't really matter, but the key thing, and I think the thing that we all need to be paying attention to, is what does next week's candle look like? Can next week's candle, like it did back here, hold above this line? Can we recover this line and come back above 20k? Because if we can, that opens up the possibility that that was the bear market low, that we've all been gifted with an early bear market low. This is very, very painful, I admit, but rip the band-aid off as quick as possible and give us our bull run. We know ultimately inflation's not going away. We know ultimately a Fed pivot is around the corner. We know ultimately Bitcoin will do Bitcoin things. What else do you want to hold this decade? Every cloud has its silver lining, and perhaps we've just been gifted with the complete flushing of all of the excess leverage, the complete wipeout of a bunch of over-levered funds. Any weak hands are now gone and convinced that Bitcoin is dead. Are we now about to see one of these lockout rallies? Are we just going to see this V back up? Okay, we know that fair value is way above where we are now. Most of the miners aren't even in profit down here. We need to be a good 10k. We need to be back at 30k just for the miners to be satisfied. So we're well overdone. A lot of technicals are showing us this. And it's quite possible, I'm starting to believe, and I'll show you this next chart. This is what makes me think. A lot of people took this 69k high, the current cycle being this white line, by the way, at the bottom, and the other two being the prior cycles. Everyone was taking the 69k high as the high because it was above the 65k high from back here. But what if you align this initial all-time high with the prior cycle peaks, And this you just count as an anomaly because ordinarily it wouldn't have breached this high, but on this occasion it did just trap liquidity before it moved down. This would mean we are right in the timing band to form a bear market low. If this was the actual all-time high, did we just form it early and then form the low early? Are we now ready to revert to the mean and be in the 50 to 60k range by the end of this year, setting up for, let's face it, what was always destined to be the bull run of all bull runs? More confluence. We dropped in 3 months 58.19%. This is the biggest 3-month decline since April to July of 2011. No other 3-month candle is this deep. There are only 12 days left before this candle closes, and we end the month. After such a Bitcoin fall, stabilization and or a strong recovery is statistically expected. Now we know that the stock market and Bitcoin have been correlated, not fundamentally, but in price. Whilst the Dow in green here is oversold, the Smart Money Flow Index is bidding massively. Okay, so are they all wrong? Are they all about to get crushed and is the bottom about to fall out of the Dow? Unlikely. Or are we to expect, even though it's a short week this week because we've got a bank holiday in America, are we to expect that the Dow puts in a big rally this coming week? And if it does that mean Bitcoin is also going to make one of these V-bottom recoveries? Quite possibly. So I just want to leave you with this. First of all, if you're still here, pat yourself on the back. Okay, if you held through this, this is how you get to the point in life where you get to later on tell your kids and your grandkids what it was like to be a Bitcoin investor. Many people will have a very, very horrible story. Oh, I bought some Bitcoin and it crashed 80% and I sold and I lost my money and I walked away, only to find out a few years later that it had gone on to achieve millions per coin, only to find out that it was the ultimate bearer asset, digital property that you can own and that no one can confiscate. So remember, if you take freedom seriously, understand this. Just get off zero. Just hold some Bitcoin. Just hold some Bitcoin because some Bitcoin is at least a chance at freedom. Owning no Bitcoin guarantees that you will be a slave to CBDCs. If you found value here today, if you enjoyed the hype train, I'd appreciate it if you could drop a like on the video. Subscribe if you're not already. Follow me on Twitter. And got a bank holiday in the US tomorrow, so I'm not going to be doing any trading updates until tomorrow, but make sure you're tuned in if you want to watch all of that, if you want to see how I'm dealing with these markets as a swing trader. And until then, I wish you all the best. Take care. Cheers.